Hello Hornby fans, Sam's Trains here. Welcome to my railway and welcome to a Christmas video. Hang on, 1 second. Alright, that's better. I do apologise for that. I am in the Christmas spirit, I promise. I think just the beard was a little bit distracting maybe. Anyway, speaking of beards, did you know that Santa is no longer able to solely rely on this sleigh to deliver presents on Christmas Eve? Yes, that is absolutely true. Basically, there are some places where it's a little bit unsafe for unknown flying objects, such as sleighs, to fly, and obviously it's really important that Santa doesn't get shot down or something on Christmas Eve. I don't think anybody wants that for Santa. Although, obviously, it makes sense then that Santa does require another additional mode of transport for such places, and that is where Hornby comes in with this, the lovely Santa's Express Christmas train set, designed for Christmas trees, but of course also designed for another very specific purpose. And we're talking, of course, about this, the little Santa's Express engine, and it's this little engine that's going to be doing the job of the sleigh in those areas that are only accessible by train. So, I know what you're probably thinking. That is an awfully big responsibility for an awfully small little locomotive. And I agree completely. Of course, there will be an awful lot riding on this. Literally, in fact, we're talking millions of presents. Obviously, Santa's quite a big guy as well, and there's no telling how many millions of miles this would have to do in order to get around the world. And so, quite rightly, Santa is a little bit concerned, really, on whether this little tiny engine is up to the job. And so I've offered to do a little bit of testing for him to find out whether this loco is in fact capable of running for whatever, 2 days I suppose, in order to do the job. So I've set up an experiment, as you can see over here. You might be able to see a bit of it. We're going to leave this little tiny engine running for 2 days straight with the Santa's Express train, and we'll find out whether this tiny little engine is actually capable of surviving such a vigorous test. So let me show you this setup properly and we'll get started. So, as you can see, I've set up some track up on my table here, and I've actually used the track from the train set itself. Now, this setup is about 2.5 metres all the way round for a single lap, which means that the Santa's Express here will have to complete around 600 laps, in fact over 600 laps, in order to do a single mile, so it's definitely no mean feat, this. As you can also tell, I've done a little bit of decorating just to give Santa something nice to look at really on his very long and tedious journey. I've included some of his familiar items, just, so he feels a bit more at home, and also some of these Hornby Scaledale buildings, which are actually excellent. Some of these I've never seen before. I mean, most of my buildings literally came out of my printer, and in comparison, these are extremely solid, being that they're made of a thick resin, I think, as opposed to, well, paper, like a lot of mine are. So they're really cool. Another thing that I didn't necessarily realise was that the Santa's Express itself has changed quite a bit from last year. So the engine itself is about the same, I can't really see any difference there. However, the presents wagon is now in a lovely wintry blue colour, which I think is excellent. And even more interestingly, and I love this, the box fan has been repainted so that it now says that Santa's sleigh is inside it, which is really cool. Last year it was the reindeer, I think. I suppose the sleigh makes a bit more sense. I mean, the sleigh doesn't have to breathe like reindeer do. Although, I was thinking, if you did have the reindeer in transit van, you could pop that on the back, and then you could carry Santa's entire kit, couldn't you? You've got the sleigh and the reindeer, which is really good. So it does pay to collect the Christmas stuff every year, if that's something you fancy. Anyway, all of this stuff, excluding the Santa hats of course, is available on Hornby.com, the buildings, the train set, so if you want to get one for yourself, head over to Hornby.com and check it out. Now then, before we get started, I must say, don't try this at home. Now, there are more dangerous things you could do on your model railway. I think that's certainly true. Many model railway controllers can output more than an amp before they detect a short circuit, and that's quite a lot of current to be running around a model railway if the motor is to fail, for example, or if the loco derails or anything like that happens. Even I'm a little bit naughty to attempt this because there's no way to make this 100% safe unattended, especially not overnight. Now, I've taken one major measure to mitigate this issue. I am not going to be using a standard model railway controller to run this experiment. Instead, I'm going to be using this. This is a power supply. It's like a bench power supply. It doesn't make a good model railway controller normally, but in this case it's going to be quite handy because, as you can see, I can fine-tune the voltage going to the train, but more importantly, I can limit the amount of current going out to the track. I'm going to limit it to about 200 milliamps, which means that I can guarantee there will never be any more than about 2.5 watts going into this track at any time, which is a good thing. So don't try this at home. It's not a safe thing to do by any means, especially with all this cotton wool. Hadn't thought about that, but never mind, never mind. So the only thing left to do then is to get this loco started and I guess leave it for 48 hours and see what it's like after I come back. So Santa Claus, hang on, here we go. Jump on. There we go. I hope you've got lots of packed lunches and things, because you're going to be on this train for a very long time. And with that, let's get this train started. We'll watch it do its first ever lap, and goodness knows how many more it will do before the thing stops. So let's get started. Okay, the time is 10 to 9. You may begin. I've made this sound just like an exam. I apologise for that on a Christmas video. No one wants to think about those. And there we go. The train is now up to 12 volts, and it's running properly. So the little engine is now running at approximately 0.8 miles per hour, if you're interested in the speed. I'm now going to leave this for an hour, and we'll come back and do an update after just 1 hour. So I will see you then. Hopefully this thing will still be running after just an hour. Okay, it's 10 to 10, which means Santa and his train have done the first hour of 48 in their great big journey. So, now that we're started, now that we're up and running, I thought I'd tell you a little bit more about the actual experiment. The loco has sped up over its first hour. It's now doing a little bit over 0.8 miles an hour, which means that very soon it will have done its first mile. Also, I've decided I'm not going to clean the track or service the loco in any way during this experiment. In the past, when I've done things like this, I've gone round and cleaned the track while the engine's been running, and I've given it a bit of oil here and there. I'm not going to do this time, so it's going to be running completely unaided for its entire experiment. Also, because Hornby changed the gear ratios slightly on their 040s a few years back, newer models like this one run a little bit slower than they used to, which means you have to turn the controller up a bit to get the same sort of speed. So this one is going to be running at 12 volts rather than, say, 6 or whatever I've done in the past. So I'm really interested to see how that's going to affect the motor. And after we've done this for 48 hours, I am going to take the loco apart and see what it's done to the insides of it. But for now, I'm going to leave this going. We'll see how it goes overnight, and I think once we get to 24 hours, I'll come and do another update, and we'll see how things are going. We'll see if it's sped up or slowed down. But for now, everything seems absolutely fine. The house hasn't burnt down, so it's all looking very good. Very positive. Good morning everybody, it is just about 10 to 9 on day 2, which means that Santa and his train have now been going for 24 hours, an entire day. And as you can see, the update is that she is still running, and I'm very glad as well. In 24 hours, this engine has completed over 11,000 laps of this layout, which is pretty incredible. However, there has been one very worrying development, and that is that great black streaks of gunk have started to appear on certain parts of the track. I mean, look at this bit. I'm amazed that the loco is still running over that section, because the entire track is more or less covered just there. It is starting to show though, because the loco has slowed down. Yesterday I measured over 0.8 miles an hour. This morning though, I've woken up to find that it's slowed down to 0.73 miles an hour, so it's definitely having an impact. And of course we're only halfway through, so the big worry is that gunk going to get even worse and stop the engine from running? I'm hoping not, of course. So far so good, but it is a little bit of a worry. The other interesting thing is that the black gunk only seems to be on the straights. The curves look perfectly clean. Now, of course, they're not perfectly clean. As you can see, yes, fingers very dirty having rubbed that. But for some reason, the gunk is way worse on the straights. So if you've got a theory as to why that might be, do let us know down in the comments. But for the time being, everything seems to be okay. The crucial thing is the engine is still running. Santa's still in with a chance of completing his job. So I will come back to you in another 24 hours and we will find out whether this engine is still running and of course what state the engine is in. Alright, so it's day 3 now and there's about 1 minute left to go until the Santa's Express has completed its challenge. I must admit I'm absolutely amazed by the performance of this Santa's Express. As you can see, the black build-up on the track has gotten even worse. There's a good 2 or 3 inches of it now that are completely covered in that black carbon build-up. And the loco just runs over it as though there was nothing there at all. And that, to be honest, has really surprised me. I've had locos that struggle over even slightly dirty track. And here we have the dirtiest track I've ever seen and the cheapest Hornby loco available to buy. And it runs over it absolutely perfectly. I'm not even sure how it's possible, to be honest with you, but it's absolutely fine. It hasn't slowed down at all, really, since yesterday. It's still doing 0.73 miles an hour, which is very good. And with that, I make it pretty much exactly 10 to 9, so I can, at long last, stop the Santa's Express. Alright. There we go. Santa, that his engine is fully Sam's Train certified. But that little engine ran for 48 hours on full speed. I never cleaned the track, I never cleaned its wheels. In fact, I forgot to oil it at the start, so it didn't even have any oil. What has that done to the mechanism? Well, I opened it up to find out. So as you can see, there were bits of this engine all over the bench. I literally completely dismantled the loco, and to be honest with you, the damage was absolutely ridiculously minimal. So the wheels weren't even that dirty, get a load of that. The track was completely filthy, but the wheels weren't that bad. I managed to clean them with just one cotton bud, and as you can see, even that isn't too bad. The pickups, here are the pickups, not even worn. I couldn't see anywhere on those whatsoever, which is just crazy for 48 hours. Here is the armature. This is like the core of the motor, and it's this bit here that takes the power into the motor. It's called the commutator. Now, as you can see, that did suffer a little bit. It was a little bit dirty. However, I did manage to clean it up, and it worked just fine after that. Here are the brushes, and once again I'm amazed by the lack of wear on those. There's still many running hours left on those, which is absolutely incredible. The worm drive looks brand new, there's no noticeable wear on that at all. And get this, I managed to put it all back together onto the track and the thing worked absolutely perfectly. So we can say with absolute certainty that the Hornby 040s, even though they're so inexpensive, are incredibly reliable machines. We knew that was true of locos 20 years ago, but it's so reassuring to know that that is still true today. So yes, the Santa's Express passed the test with flying colours. Santa will definitely be able to use it on Christmas Eve, and let's hope that it all goes well for him, shall we? For now though, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that. Let us know down in the comments what you thought, and I will see you very soon, hopefully. Alright, cheers everybody.